Hey, gorgeous ones. Welcome to this video of the Writing Brave Mastermind overview. So, as we get started, as ever, if you've been following my work for any amount of time, you know that we are going to start with a quick grounding. So, take just a moment and bring some attention to your feet on the floor. Whatever position you might be in right now, I happen to be standing. So, I'm noticing my feet on the rug. You might notice your feet inside shoes or socks or slippers. If you're sitting down or if you're sitting cross-legged or if you're lying down, right? Just bringing some attention to the bottoms of your feet and to anywhere that your body is in contact with a surface, whether that's a chair, a couch, a bed, a car seat, the floor, wherever you might be. So take a moment, bring some attention to the points where your body is in contact with a surface. Take a moment and notice what your breath is doing. Maybe feeling the air flowing in and out of your nose or your mouth. I'm going to do a quick scan of all five senses. So take a moment and look around the space where you are, noticing colors, shapes that are in your space, noticing the quality of light at this time of day, just noticing what you see with your eyes. You might bring some attention now to the sounds that you can hear. So the sound of my voice, the sound of your own breathing. You might hear outside sounds. I hear some birds. I hear an airplane going by. You might hear traffic or people. You might hear folks in your household, family members, pets, children, whatever that might be. And noticing also the quiet in which all the sounds are happening. Next, we're going to check in with your sense of smells, noticing if there's any smells happening. You might also activate your sense of taste by taking a sip of something to drink. And lastly, we're going to bring in your sense of touch. You might rub your palms together. You can touch your face. If that feels good, you can give yourself a hug. If you are in a place where you want to be more subtle, you might rub the tips of your fingers together or rub your palms on your thighs. You could touch your fingertips to the bottom of your palms. All right. So noticing now, you feel any different than you did 2 minutes ago. Just noticing and saying hi to all of the sensations. Welcome. Welcome to this overview of the Writing Brave Mastermind. Some of you watching may have been in my world, in my ecosystem for a while, and some of you might be new to me. So if that's the case, hi. Hi to all of you. My name is Brooke Adams Law. A lot of people think I am a law firm. I am in fact not. My last name is actually Law. I am the founder of Writing Brave. I'm also the award-winning author of the novel Catchlight, which was named a best indie book by Kirkus Reviews in 2020. I'm super proud of it. And Writing Brave is both a writing coaching business, and we also have a hybrid publishing arm. So most of my work is in teaching and editing, and then also I work with my team to publish a few books a year through our hybrid publishing company, Writing Brave Press. So I am so glad that you're here. So I'm also, I'll just say, add a little personal detail. I'm also the mom of two kiddos. So both my kids are in elementary school at the time of this recording, and we live in Westchester, New York. So happy to meet you all. Before we kind of dive into some nuts and bolts about the mastermind specifically, I want to also kind of preface all of this by saying that it's really important to me and a huge value of mine that Writing Brave is a place that's welcoming to all people. So inclusive of folks of different ethnicities and races, gender identities, sexual orientations. My intention is for this to be a welcoming space And I also want to kind of acknowledge and just kind of like speak into the fact that a lot of online writing spaces, a lot of publishing spaces, a lot of maybe spaces in general are really in our world are often very white centric. And so I am always doing my own learning to kind of unlearn and unspool from the white privilege that I have benefited from, and to create spaces that feel as safe as possible for people of different races and religions, people who have different experiences than I do, different abilities, right? All of the pieces. I am not perfect. And so I'm always working and learning at being a better ally. And so that's something that's really important to me. All right, let's talk a little bit about what the Writing Brave Mastermind is. If you've been following me for a long time, you might remember that it's formerly known as the Secrets of Storytelling Mastermind. So this is the exact same program. If you were following me when it was called Secrets of Storytelling, all I did was change the name to the Writing Brave Mastermind. Everything else about the program is the very same. So the Writing Brave Mastermind is a 6-month intimate live group coaching program. And the big aim of the program is to help you step into and fully own your author identity. And there's a lot of pieces that go into this, right? Another big aim of the program is to help you write your book and just absolutely love the process. But I want to speak to why stepping into your author identity is so important and why I've made it really a cornerstone of the Writing Brave Mastermind. So a few years ago at this point, I was speaking on a virtual panel, and the panel was about writing essays. And so there were maybe 5 or 6 writers on the panel, and there was someone who was, chairing the panel. And then there were lots of people on this Zoom call who had questions about writing essays and getting essays published and that kind of thing. Um, and I remember somebody in the audience asked a question about imposter syndrome and how do you overcome imposter syndrome? And I really listened as kind of one author after another basically said, like, I feel like an imposter all the time. I'm always worried that, the next thing I write, the jig is going to be up and it's going to fall apart. Everyone's going to know I'm not a real writer. I don't feel like a real writer. And this really surprised me because these people were, some of them, like, more successful than I was, had, you know, huge best-selling books, had really successful traditional book deals with like big 5 publishers, had prestigious literary agents, right? The whole package, what it seemed like from the outside. And kind of one after the other, all of them were like, I don't feel like a real writer. I'm not really a real writer. I only wrote that one book. And meanwhile, the book was like a bestseller or, like won awards, whatever it was. And I kind of got up a little bit on my pedestal, and I was like, oh, like, I really believe that embracing and feeling like a real writer is an inside job. It's work that you have to do internally. And the external pieces, right? Like having a book deal, having an agent, having a book that has sold really well, having awards, like none of those things actually change our identities, right? We have to do that through our own self-belief and our own thoughts, and kind of it's that internal work. And kind of the discussion turned, and the person who was chairing the panel was like, well, what if I did, as part of her business, she was like, what if I did sort of an essay certification program, and, you could take classes and you could write essays and and be certified, and you could have a little badge for like your website, whatever. And I said kind of in my comment, I was like, if people don't feel like they're real writers when they have a book deal and an agent and awards and all these things, like certification is not going to be the thing that helps, right? We can't look outward, right, for those pieces of our identity. We have to look inward. And so a lot of the skills that I teach in the Writing Brave Mastermind are geared toward helping you step into your author identity now, because it changes the way you show up to the page, right? It changes what comes through on the page. And when you can do that before you ever have a published book, it changes who you are, and it changes how you show up to your work, and it changes how you treat your own writing. So that's really what the mastermind is about. And I'm going to kind of walk through how we do some of that work. There's another piece to it that I think is really important, which is we do a lot of work around connecting with the spirit of your book, right? So I teach and I believe that our books know more than we do. And that is not a concept that I invented. I first encountered it through Madeline L'Engle's work, her book, Walking on Water. She talks a lot about this idea that our books are wiser than we are, but there are other authors who talk about this too. Julia Cameron talks about it in The Artist's Way and some of her other work. Stephen Pressfield talks about this in The War of Art and some of his other work, right? So there's artists kind of throughout history and who are working now who acknowledge like something comes through me and I don't fully understand it and it knows more than I do. It's smarter than me, right? It does better work than I can do. And so we are really kind of consciously calling in some of that energy through the Writing Brave Mastermind. And these are skills that, serve you for every book that you will ever write. This isn't like, let's do, some very specific craft strategies that will work for this particular book that you're on now. And then when you start the next one, you're kind of, or if it's in a different genre or a different type of book, you're kind of stuck. These are strategies and really tools that serve you for your artistic life, forever is my hope. So I will also say if me talking about connecting with the spirit of your book is like a little too woo, then the Writing Brave Mastermind might not be for you. But if you're like, oh my gosh, tell me more, yes, please, let's do it. So there are 4 main curriculum areas that we work on in the Writing Brave Mastermind, and they are practice, craft, mindset, and intuition. And so let me talk a little bit and kind of unpack a little bit about each one. So practice, we're really talking about when do you write? When do you sit down? For how long do you write? How often do you write? What's your writing routine? What's your writing habit? And really, if I can teach you to have kind of a foundational writing habit, if you don't already have one, like we're halfway there, right? That's literally what gets books written, is a habit that you can sustain over time. And so we talk a lot about writing rituals and how to set up a practice that actually works in this season of your life. I've seen a lot of writers kind of overshoot and try to overdo when they start writing. And especially if you're writing about trauma, this can really shut you down and put you kind of in a freeze state. And even if you're not writing about trauma, if you go too hard, too fast, right? It's almost like you have your mind has this reflex similar to your body if you stretch too far, there are certain fibers in your muscles that like retract, right? Because they don't want you to injure yourself. So your brain is kind of the same. If you try to write too much too fast and you don't have kind of a sustainable habit, it's really easy to stop writing. I'm not saying this is for everyone, but if you've had that experience where you're like, I'm going to write an hour every day, and you're going from 0 to an hour every day, and then you miss a day, and then you miss another day, and then all of a sudden you haven't written anything in like 2 years, maybe you can relate, right? So we do a lot of work at the outset of setting up a writing practice that actually works in the season of life that you're in. And we talk about different strategies of when you need to flex that practice based on what's happening in your life, because life happens. And the trick is to learn how to write along with what's happening instead of just stopping because the practice you had been doing no longer works with whatever circumstances have changed. So that's practice. The second area is craft, which is obviously a huge part of writing, is literally just the skill of writing, So we walk through really specific skills, like how do you set up a compelling scene? How do you write strong dialogue? How do you write foreshadowing? That's a session that I did last year. And I tend to change these craft lessons based on kind of where the writers are who are coming in and what people most want to learn about. So I have a giant compendium and I kind of pull from and teach live whatever is most needed. Third area is mindset. And so this is really where we're getting into that work of stepping into your author identity. What are the habits of mind that we can cultivate that really set us up for success and really help us see ourselves as writers, right? So we kind of move from seeing writing as a hobby or something that we do to really thinking of ourselves as writers as part of our identity. And similarly, then making that leap from feeling like a writer to feeling like an author, even if you haven't published a book yet. So we do a lot around that mindset. How do we step into that mindset? How do we cultivate it over time? And the last piece is intuition, right? So how do we kind of drop into our own intuitive knowing? How can we kind of bypass or sidestep some of our more logical thinking brain patterns and really kind of open up to that wild creativity and really channel the book that wants to be written, right? So we do a lot of work on channeling. How do we open up to that channel? How do we kind of turn on inspiration on demand, right? How do we kind of cultivate practices that let that inspiration well up when we sit down and not just kind of at random times, right? How do we kind of cultivate that intuitive knowing, that intuitive power that makes creative writing so much fun? So those are the 4 areas. Again, it's practice, craft, mindset, and intuition. And so every session that we do really touches on one or more of those. So here's how the mastermind is set up. Let me just share my screen. So here we go. Okie dokie. So here's how the mastermind is set up. We have 6 months of group calls. So the mastermind starts in January. It runs through June. We do a live group call every week. This is important. The group call is set. It's not set ahead of time. Once everyone enrolls, I do an availability survey and I offer folks like 10 or 12 times, and we choose the time based on the most availability. I will say that most folks can make the live time. Like I do my very best to hit everyone's availability. It will be during the day. It's typically in the early afternoon Eastern time. So like 1 or 2 o'clock on like a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Those are typically the times that we end up with. I have had folks have to like change their schedule around to be able to make it. Of course, everything is recorded. So I have had folks who were not able to make the time who would catch up on the recording every single week and were still super involved in the mastermind and still had a really great experience. So that's a question that I hear a lot is when is the time? That's the answer. So during that hour together, I will do live teaching on one of the 4 themes that I just covered. We will have accountability. So I'll talk about that in a moment. And this is also really a time to build community. And what I've heard from folks is that weekly hour of just building the muscle of being in community with other writers, practicing, sharing how you're doing, hearing how other people are doing, when it's good, when it's bad, right? Just like riding the waves together is one of the most impactful parts of the mastermind. So let's talk about, let's go back. We're going to talk about accountability. We have multiple accountability structures. These look different from year to year, but things that I've done in the past have included having folks set on a spreadsheet every single month what their goal is, like week by week. Like I'm going to write 3 times a week for 45 minutes at a time or whatever it might be. You get to set your own goal. And when you meet your own goals for every week out of that given month, you get a little prize in the mail. So like a candle or a piece of chocolate or, something fun, like a $5 Starbucks gift card, like something just fun, a fun little reward. So I've done that in the past. Other accountability structures are we typically have small accountability groups that we check in with during the live call, maybe 2 or 3 times a month. So we get on the call with everyone, and then you go into your small group of like 3 or 4 people. and you share like, did I meet my goal this week? Like, do I need to shift what my goal is? Right. So kind of different pieces like that. We've had different, like I said, different accountability structures over time, but you will be motivated to write and we'll check in on it pretty much every week. So you kind of have that accountability of just like people asking like, so are you doing the thing? Are you doing the thing that you said you would do? And you kind of have those in different structures. Okay, so the next section of the mastermind is super important. It's monthly one-on-one feedback, right? So you submit up to 5,000 words a month. And I always tell people that is a limit and not an assignment. Some people, that number, 5,000 words a month, it's like, they're like, I am going to get as much feedback as I can. I'm going to submit 5,000 words every single month. Some people write what they can, and sometimes they hit 5,000 words and sometimes they don't. And some people never hit 5,000 words a month. They might submit like whatever they have. It might be just a couple thousand words. So it's a limit and not an assignment, and it's kind of flexible. You can submit as much as you want up to, right, that amount. You receive a substantive editorial letter. So on this page, and I'll talk about this at the end, there's going to be some sample editorial letters and kind of sample coaching sessions. So in addition to submitting your work, you get a substantive editorial letter from one of my Writing Brave editors every month. You also get a one-on-one private session with your editor. So that's every month, 45 minutes. You get to really dig into the feedback that they gave, and you can also kind of troubleshoot what comes next in your book. If you're stuck on like some structural pieces or you have questions about things that I've taught in class, you can really use that time however you like to kind of troubleshoot wherever you're stuck. So I have been really intentional in setting up the mastermind to have both this group kind of community component and live teaching alongside that one-on-one feedback on your actual writing. That has been the most impactful on my own writing, that combination when I was doing my MFA program. That combination of sort of like a community, live teaching and classes alongside that one-on-one feedback from a highly trained person on my writing. What I've seen in my clients and in myself is that combination moves the needle in really incredible ways towards your own best writing. We also do a virtual 2-day writing retreat during the 6 months of the mastermind. That's typically in February, but the timing has changed based on, what kind of curriculum, how I'm setting up the curriculum that year. We talk a lot during that retreat about healing creative wounds. So this is a topic you might have heard me speak on before. I believe a creative wound happens anytime we make something and it was not received the way we had hoped. We all have creative wounds, and this is really a chance where we kind of start gently airing some of them, right? Because a lot of times, if they're left to fester, right, they turn into blocks. They turn into perfectionism and procrastination and having a really mean inner critic, right? So we start gently kind of addressing the root of some of those issues and really kind of practice some energetic tools to let some of those wounds kind of air and begin healing. We also have just a lot of writing time during that virtual writing retreat. And it's really, really a powerful 2 days. Lastly, you have forever access to the course portal. So the course portal will have recordings of each week's class every single week. So if you miss one, or again, if you can't make the time, it's there every single week. And also for each module, for each week, there's typically different tools, exercises, depending on what it is that we're walking through. There's extra material in there almost every week. Sometimes really the material for a given week doesn't lend itself to extra material, but I typically have additional practice and kind of exercises pretty much every week. All right. So let's carry on to the next piece. In addition to all those items, there is a core bonus stack every single year. And I'm not going to walk through the bonuses because they change from year to year, but there's typically at least 5 bonuses that are included for everyone's mastermind experience. And then typically there are also some pop-up kind of surprise bonuses when the doors first open. Sometimes I do one when they're closing. Typically everyone gets access to the bonuses with the exception of sometimes I do a fast action bonus, which is when the doors open, you have a day or 2 days to join and get that fast action bonus, right? You're being rewarded for taking quick action. So if you're watching this video and you're like, I definitely want in on this mastermind, you might want to plan to sign up right when the doors open so that you can get that fast action bonus. But otherwise, like I said, there's about 5 or sometimes more kind of core bonuses that everyone gets. Then there's usually a pop-up surprise bonus or 2 kind of as the doors open. All right. Yeah. Make sure you check the sales page for this year when the doors do open, and you can see exactly what bonuses are included this year. So I want to talk a little bit about the results that my clients have created. I started the mastermind in 2021. I'm recording this in 2024, so I've done 4 cohorts to date, but you might be watching this in the future, in which case, just add however many years have passed, and you'll have the number of cohorts that we've done. So just a couple of like short stories of what folks have experienced. So my client Rasheen had attempted to write a memoir many times over about 15 years, kind of started and stopped, had lots of journals, was attempting to write this book and could not ever get together anything resembling kind of a book draft. And working through the mastermind, she finished a draft of her memoir within 9 months. And it was mostly new writing. Like she brought in kind of some writing she'd already done, but she was able to shape the book and finish a draft within 9 months of starting, approximately. My client Kelly started her book during the mastermind. It's called Closing the Confidence Gap. She finished the book. I would say she finished like a final draft of the book, I would say within maybe 10 months of starting the mastermind. She hybrid published it about 6 or 7 months later. And it was a next big idea book. It won an Axiom Award in the careers category, and it's been really well received. So I'm really proud of having worked with her on that. My client Megan wrote a draft of her memoir within about 8 or 9 months of starting the mastermind, and she was writing about some pretty intense grief. So being able to use some of the energetic practices in the mastermind and kind of working with an editor helped her kind of move through that process. My client CJ went from not prioritizing her writing to writing 5 days a week, finishing a draft of her book, and starting other projects during the mastermind, right? While loving her writing time. And my client Nadia worked through 2 full drafts of her book in the past 2 years, and she's currently working on a proposal to pitch it to Hay House. So as you let some of these client stories kind of roll over you, I want you to tap into your own desire, your own intention of what you would want to create if you were to step into the Writing Brave Mastermind. In 6 months or 9 months, right, from whenever you're watching this video, looking ahead to the end of June next year, what would you like to have accomplished? What would you like to have created? Really tap into that dream, that desire, that intention. And you can pause the video if you want to and really spend some time digging into what is it that you want to create? What is it that you want to step into? So on this page where you're watching this video, you'll be able to access additional information about the Writing Brave Mastermind that I hope will help you make the clearest and most grounded decision for you, if it's a good fit for you to join or not join. You'll find maybe available now or maybe dropping over the following weeks, depending on when you're watching this. You can expect, number 1, a playlist of video testimonials from clients. So some of those folks that I just mentioned recorded conversations with me about their experience. You can watch some of those conversations on this page. You're also going to see some sample videos of my Writing Brave editors working with folks on their work. So you'll be able to see some real life submissions, some real life editorial letters, and then some real life kind of mini coaching sessions where people were allowed us to record a session of them meeting with one of my editors. Let's see, there's also a place below this video, or there will be, to submit questions. So if you have specific questions about if the mastermind is right for you or things like that, you can submit those below and I'll answer those either in an email direct to you or in kind of a larger email, right? If I have a lot of the same question, I might do an email to folks on the wait list to answer that for everybody. So if your main question is, how much does the Writing Brave Mastermind cost? I'm going to answer it right now. So the investment in the mastermind isn't cheap, right? My intention is really that I'm creating this intimate, luxurious learning experience, right? So it's not just a class where, there's like 50 people and, we don't know everyone's name. It's not like that at all, right? It's this really intimate group. There's, intimate relationships formed across folks in that community. I know everybody's name, of course, and know what they're working on. And I'm really tailoring all of the curriculum to suit people's needs kind of as we're going along. So I'm also bringing to bear more than 13 years of experience and more than $55,000 worth of training in both writing and editing, and also in somatic experiencing and energy work. And I'm using all of that learning and all of that training to really craft, right, a powerful experience. That's my intention. So just to walk through again what you get when you join, right? You get those weekly group calls for 6 months from January to June. And I will just say that I usually do the enrollment in November, and I do kind of some bridge items from November, like end of November, like early December into January, right? So there's kind of a clear pathway moving you into those 6 months of calls from January to June. So you get those weekly group 1-hour calls every single week for the 6 months. There's normally a 1 week where we don't have a call. It's an integration week where we kind of have some space to integrate what we've learned. But otherwise, we're meeting weekly, right? Those multiple accountability structures, like I mentioned before, you get that monthly one-to-one feedback where you submit up to 5,000 words. You get that substantive, detailed editorial letter back. And then you have that monthly private 45-minute session with your editor, right? Every single month. You get that virtual 2-day retreat where we're working on healing creative wounds and doing a lot of writing. You get forever access to the course portal. And like I said before, it's typically 5 or more kind of core bonuses. And then there's always like a pop-up kind of surprise bonus when doors open. So the investment for the 6-month program is $7,500. And there are 2 main ways of paying. If you pay in full, so if you do the one lump sum payment, you get an additional bonus, which is a one-on-one structure power hour with me. So those sell for $500, so that it's a $500 bonus if you pay in full. The other payment plan that I offer is a $1,000 deposit and then 7 monthly payments of $929. So when the doors open in November, you do a $1,000 deposit, and then starting in December for 7 months, you do a monthly payment of $929. So I'm also exploring offering additional financing, and that I'm looking into some partners right now to see if that's something that we're going to be able to offer. So there might be additional payment plans from year to year, but those are the main payment plans. So I want you to consider and kind of make space over the next days or weeks of really kind of considering, is the mastermind for you, right? Is it something that you want to jump in and experience? And I want to first say that I understand that that price point is not accessible to everyone. I offer a lot of free and low cost things throughout the year. And this is not obviously one of those. And I recognize that it may not be accessible to everyone. And rather than, right, I've had a lot of business training and a lot of people have taught me to like coach into the sale or, tell people they can open a 0% interest credit card and, just finance it themselves, whatever, right? I'm not going to do any of that. That is it does not feel in my integrity at all. I don't coach into the sale. I don't push people to figure out, right, how to finance something that they can't actually afford. But what I do want to invite you to do is to take a deep breath, right? Maybe place your hand on your chest and let drop this question. Imagine almost that you're dropping it like a stone into a pond, and you're kind of dropping this question into your consciousness, right? That you're asking your wisdom and your book, is the mastermind a fit for me? And making space, right, for a surprising answer. It might be a clear no, and it might be a clear yes, and it might be a clear not right now. Maybe next year or another year. Or it might be like a little bit murky and you kind of need to let your wisdom kind of roll around on that question. And I will just say too that I have had people think at first that it was not accessible, and then they really spent time with their desire and found a creative way forward that worked for them. So I'm not coaching you into the sale, but I am offering that I have had folks kind of find creative ways forward that they didn't see at first, right? So just making space, if that is meant to be for you, that it would come clear over time. So I invite you to explore all the materials I mentioned that are either on this page right now or again are going to roll out over the next days or weeks. And I really look forward to answering your questions. And I look forward to having some of you in this year's cohort of the mastermind. I am always sort of holding my intention and my energy of how many seats we have available in a given year, and literally praying and intending that the right people step forward to fill those seats. So if that's you, I can't wait to work with you and see how your book grows in the Writing Brave Mastermind. Take care, everybody.